Hi guys, today I'm going to start to build my wood-fired pizza oven. I've been looking for a place. Sometimes it can be quite difficult. I don't want it too close to the patio. I don't want to put it in the lawn where I got to go around it with the lawnmower, so I found a quiet little space over here. It's not too close, it's not too far away. I think I'm going to build it right here on top of this retaining wall. It's probably going to be basic for now. No bells and whistles. I have enough bells and whistles going on in my life, so I don't need to be I'm thinking of that's the first part done. I dug out for the base, so it was quite difficult. A lot of roots from these trees. I was able to manage to cut them, and now I'm going to fill a good deep concrete base in there, and then the next phase will follow up. It may be a good idea to map out your area with some pegs and some string, and here I'm making the form that holds in the concrete base. I'm using an exercise ball here for the dome. The largest ball I could get was a 75 centimeter one. In this case I pumped it up past its capacity to 85 centimeters. I don't think it'll take much more, but I think that'll give me a good enough dome for the oven. So we'll see how that goes. Here I'm cutting the hole smaller than the exercise ball. That way the ball sits mostly on top and will create a larger dome. After I cut out the circle, I used the leftover wood to use for a template for the brick arch. Now you can see the exercise ball on top of the base. It sits 80% above the base on this one, and I made square sides all around. That'll create a bigger dome when it comes out of the mold. I just used some duct tape and cardboard to do this, and I just used an old plastic flower pot for the chimney. And that's your basic shape for the mold. I've also covered the whole structure with saran wrap so that the perlite dome comes away much easier. All those wine bottles you've seen earlier in the video, well, they've been pretty good use. I'm going to cover the whole floor here, this base, with pretty decent sized wine bottles, 3.5 inches. So I've made the base deep. It's important to make your base deep if you're going to cover it with wine bottles. So this base is probably 8 inches deep, and I think I should be able to get enough concrete underneath the wine bottles and on top of the wine bottles, and that will be a great insulator. It'll stop the heat after it goes through the firebrick. Whatever time it hits the wine bottles, they act as chambers and they hold the heat much longer. Here I'm using some old mesh wire I had lying around, and that'll work as reinforcing for the concrete. I don't know if I mentioned, but it rains a lot in Ireland. As you can see, I've started putting on the refractory cement. I'm using perlite, not vermiculite. Perlite is supposed to take the heat better and not crack as easy as vermiculite. It's know if you can see it, it's like white granules. A little more difficult to put on, I'm sure, than vermiculite, but with a bit of help, I'm getting it here bit by bit. I'm mixing the perlite, 5-to-1 ratio. Correction, we found using 6 tubs of perlite to 2 tubs of cement, and it went on much better. I'm mixing it in a mixing tub, which is working pretty good. That's quite easy. I hired a mixer for a day, cement mixer, to do the concrete base. That was heavy. You do need a cement mixer when you're doing your base. If you've got a lot of cement to go into a base, get a cement mixer. So, let's see. So I have the first coat of perlite on, and I've noticed when I put it on, there's a lot of cavities all around it. So I've mixed some cement and water, and I'm going around and making a thick mix, and I'm filling up all the cavities because I don't want this to crack. I've seen in a few videos already it's cracked on people, and there's an awful lot of work in bringing it to this stage. So I'm going to go above and beyond so that this don't crack. So I'm going to cover the whole thing in chicken wire, and I'm going to put a second coat of vermiculite on that, and hopefully that will give it tensile strength, and it shouldn't crack after that. Here it is now with the chicken wire on, and I use some tie wire also for reinforcement. This is the second coat of perlite going on over the top of the mesh reinforcing wire. And it's a good idea to keep your dome damp. Use a spray bottle, especially when the sun is out. And it may also be a good idea not to use your lawn furniture to hold up your base. You could get into trouble over that. And here it is with the second coat finished. And that's it for the perlite. Three days later, and with good drying conditions, it's time to release the ball. Guess where I am? You guessed it, inside the dome. Not too bad. Few cavities, and we'll get that later. I should have mentioned earlier, if you use a couple of wedges underneath your arch, it'll be easier to remove. So, when I took out the temporary arch, I thought to myself, well, the nights in Ireland can be quite cool. I'm going to have a lot of heat loss, so I wanted to go with an oven door. So I had to remake my arch. I made it smaller so that I could have this recess here. I re-poured the perlite, made the arch smaller, and now I'm left with like a door jamb so that the oven door can go right up and jam against this. This will keep the heat in a lot better in the cooler nights. So this is basically what I made over here. This is just melamite or cardboard, heavy cardboard, melamite. I put a couple of layers around here, and that was where I used for the recess. I cut that all apart to take it out. And here you can see the dome has been moved to a new resting place. You might want to get some help for this as it was quite heavy. I'm now cutting a template to get ready for the firebrick base. And here I'm cutting the firebrick to the shape of the dome. I'm using a diamond blade on a grinder. And make sure you wear your goggles, a good dust mask and earplugs for this. During these strange times, your dust mask can also double up as a COVID mask. Maybe a neighbour hears some noise, he looks into your backyard. It's all good here. I'm wearing my mask. So the firebrick have been cut to the shape of the pizza dome, and it's very important that you number all the brick that have been cut on the outside, because all of this has got to come away and a layer of sand has got to go underneath. So when you go putting it all back together again, you definitely want to make sure you know where each cut brick is going. It'll save you a lot of trouble. By the way, this is sand, not cement. It sits on a bed of sand. So all the firebrick is now laid on about 1 inch of sand. And I can't stress enough, make sure all the firebrick that you cut around the edges, make sure you number every one of those, because if you don't, you're going to end up with a jigsaw puzzle. Also, I would take a photograph of it too. Now I'm going to take away all the sand from the edges. I'm going to put a fine layer of cement the whole way around the firebrick. We let that dry overnight, maybe even 2 days, and that should retain the firebrick, so that when we do lift this dome, and this dome is quite heavy, when we do lift this dome and put it on the firebrick, it doesn't separate. That should retain it. Okay, here we have the border of cement all around the firebrick to retain it, like we said, so that it doesn't move when we put the dome on. I tell you to keep the dust when you're cutting your fabric. Keep all that dust, and they say pour it over and brush it into the cracks or the spaces between the brick, but I don't seem to have many spaces, so here goes anyway. Okay, we've landed the dome on the base of firebrick. We put a ring of fire cement, placed it on that all the way around, and as you can see, it placed pretty good. We put the chimney on yesterday and the brick arch. It's not finished yet. Okay, here I'm making a template for a metal oven door, which I'll be putting on later. Okay, in this case I've made my tunnel a little longer than most. I made it about 450 millimeters, or just over 17 inches. Every pizza oven is different. You may choose to make it longer or shorter, that's your choice. But I have done this so it keeps the heat in better. It also gives me a tunnel to play around with. I can place pizzas, steaks, or whatever food I'm cooking. I can place it right there, away from the heavy heat at the back. Template for future oven door. I've started insulating the dome. I'm using Rockwool. I ordered a ceramic blanket. It came like this. Showed a roll, but this is all came. So I'm not using that, and it's quite expensive. But I found out people are using this Rockwool 50mm sheets, and that's probably only about 10% the cost of insulating this dome compared to the ceramic blanket. It's quite awkward to put on, so I'm using string for now, wrapping it all in string. I want to have that on. I'm going to use the chicken wire, and I already have wire, if you look at this, all tied along the bottom, so the whole way around. I've pinned that in with steel nails. Once I insulate that dome, wrap it all in chicken wire, then I'm going to remove all of this string, because this string will melt. You want to get that out of there. That should be easy enough. Cut, 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 pull that away, and that should be it for that. So the chicken wire is on now, and I just want to put emphasis on this, that I have an anchor strand of heavy wire pinned every 8 inches with steel nails all the way around. I've also noticed, if you want to tighten your chicken wire down, you can grab the double-stranded part like that and give it a twist anywhere there's loose parts, and that tightens it all in, makes it nice and tight for plastering. Now I can start removing the string. Here I am making a handy mortar board, or I think the correct term for this is it's a hock. So I've started putting the sand and cement on the dome now. What I've done first of all is I've lit about 3 fires, long burning slow fires, maybe 3-4 hours at a time. I've also the very first fire, and if you're using fire cement, you don't want to go above 100 degrees so that your fire cement doesn't initially crack, and then after that you can bring it up. I haven't used much fire cement. I've only used where I landed the dome on the base, so I'm okay there. I was surprised when I did light the first couple of fires, the amount of moisture that come out of the dome. There was a lot of moisture. In fact, this insulation was really, really wet. So I put 2 coats of chicken wire on there, and I like that. It's got a good knit, and I'm now starting to put on the sand and cement. Maybe 3 shovelfuls of sand to 1 shovelful of cement, and I'm laying plastic around the sides so that anything that falls, unless you're an expert plasterer, which I'm not, so anything falls you can pick it up and put it right back on. So here goes. Oh, by the way, that's that mortar board which I made earlier. So the final coat of sand and cement is on. Turned out pretty good, but I would suggest giving it a few more days, making sure that insulation is totally dried out. It was quite damp when I was putting the cement on, and it took a little bit for it to stick, but I got it eventually. I didn't go around it with a sponge. I finished it with the trowel, and not give that effect, and I kind of like that. What I'll do next is I'll pick a color, I'll put that on, and I'll give it 2 coats of water repellent on the top of that, and that'll take me up so far. Okay, I'm going to attempt to make an oven door here now. This is a piece of mild steel, 3 millimeters thick, 3 millimeters thick plate. This is the template, which would be shaped to our oven door, to our archway. We're going to cut this So that's the oven door completed. Even though I'm going to use a laser gun for more accuracy, I fitted the temperature gauge on here, and that'll give me a rough idea. Also, it dresses it up. It looks pretty nice. That's the handle. That's made out of just an old curtain pole. 1/2-inch round bar, bent as you've seen earlier. I've made a T-bar, and this balances it. It gives it extra weight. I can keep it there. Keeps the rain out. Or I can push it the whole way right in against the door jamb or the recess. Now if the fire's out, I can cook something slowly in there. It gives me a lot of options. This, I can pull this halfway out, halfway through the chimney, let some smoke up, let some air in. Gives me various ways of cooking. That's it there with the temperature gauge. Now, I says I wasn't going to dress this oven up, but I couldn't help myself. I had some friends give me some old red brick. I bought these very pretty ornate red brick from a salvage company, CS Salvage. And they also give me this cap, chimney cap. That looks nice. And this is old sandstone that was left over from when we built the house. A lot of these things you can do later, little projects. Even here's something else I made. I made a pizza shovel out of the shaft of a brush, a stainless steel baking tray, a piece of 1-inch copper pipe. I put a slit through it. That way you can squeeze it to the size. Drilled some holes, popped in a few rivets, and it's a little flexible. But then you don't need something too rigid. The pizza's light anyway, so plus it's nice and thin, and it goes under the pizza pretty good. So that's it. The wood-fired pizza oven is finished. We've already had some pizza nights in it, and they were delicious. I can't wait to get cooking some fish and some meats in it. Just like to say a few things. I've wrote some stuff down here in case I leave anything out. I'd like to say that this perlite dome is quite big. It's bigger than most. Maybe most people don't want to make one this size. We went big. It's 70 centimeters tall, this perlite dome, and it's 90 centimeters wide. In fact, the exercise ball, we overinflated it, which we won't be able to use that ball again. Other things I'd like to talk about, health and safety. This is a lot of fun. It's a good project, but it can be quite sore on your health if you don't wear the right safety gear. Very important to wear a good respirator or a very good dust mask, because when you're mixing perlite and cement, especially perlite, not good for the lungs. If you're using a diamond blade, diamond cutter to cut stone, the dust from that, not good. Not to mention wear a good pair of goggles. You don't want particles getting in your eyes either, and I've had that once or twice and it's not good. And try and discipline yourself to wear those things. And I didn't use them enough, but I hope you do. In regards the materials and stuff, which I have a list of cost and all the things you'll need to make this. But I'd like to say, if you want to cut down on cost, like for instance firebrick. Firebrick's quite expensive, and I used the perlite dome. I just used the firebrick for the base. It was probably, for 54 firebrick, it would cost you upwards of £270. So if you go to a salvage company, they have a lot of this stuff reclaimed brick. You'll probably get it for about 1/3 of the cost. Things like that, and maybe if you take your trailer to the quarry, get your sand and gravel, that'll cut down in cost too. I've made a few other things here. You can make your oven tools Here this is just a metal wire brush. You can't use anything else. You certainly don't want to use plastic in there, or it'll melt. So metal wire brush, and again a little piece of copper and a shaft of a brush, and change it around so that you can go in level. Piece of shovel you've seen before. This I made, we'll make better later. I will do a better job and make this handle metal. But bent sheet of metal to the shape of the dome inside. That's very handy for pushing over all the embers to one side. All of these things you make for very little money. And I don't know if you can make one of these or get someone to make it, with the materials for the oven door. Wasn't expensive either. Chimney cover, all of these little things like ornate brick and the cover, all of those from salvage companies. And I think basically that's that. And I'd like to give a special thanks to the man that's holding that camera right now. That's my son, Stephen Bradley. He had great patience in documenting this. One thing was maybe do it over the period of the summer, or if you live in a better climate, do it anytime. But for me, I rushed this in maybe 5 weeks or something. Maybe I worked a little harder than I should have. But it's supposed to be a labor of love, and it is. And for something like this, they can go into the thousands. They can be quite expensive. And then if you do it at home, it's your own bespoke wood-fired oven. And I hope you've enjoyed this. Guess where I am? You guessed it, inside the dome. Okay, I'll do that again. Guess where I am? You guessed it, inside the dome. Not too bad. Shit. Need it one more time. There's no. Guess where I am? You guessed it, inside the pizza dome. Stable. Last bit's fucked up, isn't it?